You all go on.
All right, we are live on YouTube. I'm going to mute everybody on Zoom. And I'll share our prayer book in just a moment and we'll get started. But first, as we enter into Shabbat, I would like to invite everyone to think back over the last week, whatever might be weighing on your mind, and see if you can let go of that for a little while, for maybe 24 hours or at least 2 hours, as we sing together and pray together and begin our rest together. So we begin by making space inside ourselves for Shabbat peace. We are beginning on page 127 in the prayer book. That's in the bracketed numbers. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act as if we cared nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, day of peace. We come to the blessing over the candles. Is there anyone who would like the honor of doing the candle blessing? Anyone who's here? Janice. Page 120 and 121. Are you good? Yes? No?
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Use the microphone. Forgot about this.
Let me do it again. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the lights of Shabbat.
Thank you. And we come now to the Kiddush on page 123. Is there anyone who would like to read the Kiddush in English for us? Eric?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagofen. Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, creator of the fruit of the vine. Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who finding favor with us, sanctified us with mitzvot. In love and favor, you made the holy Shabbat our heritage as a reminder of the world work of creation. As first among our sacred days, it recalls the exodus from Egypt. You chose us and set us apart from the peoples. In love and favor, you have given us your holy Shabbat as an inheritance. Praise to you, Adonai, who sanctifies Shabbat.
If you're able, I invite you to rise.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava v'ratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit. כי הוא יום תהילה למקרא קודש, זה ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו וחטא אותנו קידשת מכל העמים בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. Amen.
You may be seated. Thank you. We turn now to page 128 for Lecha Dodi, the mystical poem that invites us to turn to one another and say, "Beloved, come with me to greet the Shabbat bride." And we imagine the Shabbat as a beautiful bride bringing beauty and joy to our Shabbat. Page 138.
לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמע וזכה בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ותפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי ברכו מאורי. אורי, אורי, שתדברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושבתי שמחה וצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
The Baruch Hu is on page 146. We remain standing.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed.
On page 148, I invite you to read with me. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tsebaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. Page 151.
אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, עמך אהבת. תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו וקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגי יומם ולילה, נגי יומם ולילה. ואהבת האל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל.
The Shema is on page 152.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed.
You may be seated.
Ve'ata et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavecha ubechol nafshecha ubechol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher Anochi mitzvacha hayom al levavecha Beshinantam levanecha, v'dibaretam, b'shivtecha, b'vetecha, u'v'lechtecha v'derech, u'v'shochbecha, u'v'komecha, u'gesharetam le'ot, al yadecha, v'hayu le'totafot, b'neinecha, Ugetavtam al mezuzot betecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru vasitem et kol mitzvotai vitem kidoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem.
Emet. On page 157, I invite you to read with me. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Page 158.
Mi kamocha bailim Adonai, mi kamocha nida b'kodesh lo ra tehilot hosefele. Mi kamocha bailim Adonai, mi kamocha nida b'kodesh lo ra tehilot hosefele. Malchutecha rovanecha bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam. Zei Eli anu ve'ameru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Mi kamocha bailim Adonai, mi kamocha nida b'kodesh lo ra tehilot hosefele.
V'ne'emar ki fada Adonai et Yaakov, uge'alo miyad chazak mimenu, baruch ata Adonai, ga'al Yisrael. Page 161. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace and raise us up our guardian to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel, For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai, hapores sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. V'shamru is on page 162.
V'shameru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asod et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam. Yamim Asadonai et ha-shamayim ve'et haaretz ve'et haaretz uvayom ha-shevi'i shavat vayinafash uvayom ha-shevi'i shavat vayinafash.
The tefillah begins on page 164. If you're able, I invite you to rise.
Adonai, Sefatai tiftachu fi tehillotecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני בחייך כל הטרף להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם. מחלקי חיים בחסד, מחייך כל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לישני עפר. מחמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיי ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
You may be seated. Page 173. I invite you to read with me. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day, and may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Page 175. You are with us in our prayer, our love, and our doubt, in our longing to feel your presence and do your will. You are the still, clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance. And let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. We've come now to our blessing of gratitude, Modim. And so I'd like to invite anyone who has something to share that they're feeling grateful for today to please share that. If you're on Zoom, you can share it in the chat, and everyone can share out loud. Diane Schenker? Unmute.
Grateful for good health, for my children's good health, for their love and kindness to me, and to from all my friends too.
Amen. Michael Rose. Grateful to celebrate remotely his father's 81st birthday tomorrow. And coincidentally, it's my father-in-law's 81st birthday tomorrow as well. Our daughter's birthday is coming up next week during the week. Linda Kushner Silverman.
I'm grateful to my DDGS, my drop dead gorgeous surgeon.
Excellent. Modima Nachnu Lach. She's grateful for her drop dead gorgeous surgeon. Her DDGS, I think, was the initials she shared first. From Zoom, Charlotte Russell is grateful for family and friends. Judith is grateful for a good report on a medical test she had this week. Helene is thankful that the week is over, and sometimes we just have to be glad that the week has come to an end. So amen to that. Patricia is grateful that her friend Jerome Taylor is walking on his own without the walker. And Karen is grateful to celebrate her daughter's birthday on January 24th. Anybody else? Ruth. Who is that? A family friend? Okay. So Ruth is grateful for family and friends, and she has a friend who had surgery a couple of weeks ago for a spinal abscess and has been paralyzed, but has now begun to move his toes. So Modima Nachnu Lach for all of those things. Lori Pandolfo is looking forward. Looking forward to our congregational Israel trip with friends. Still not too late to sign up. Anybody else? All right. Always we can find things to be grateful for. And I would be grateful if I could find our prayer book. Oh, there it is. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth, which day by day sustains us. For all these and all of the things we mentioned and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. We continue with Shalom Rav, our prayer for peace, page 178.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adam lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech Adam lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Titov b'yinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
Baruch atah Adonai, hamivarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. We have come now to our quiet prayer. There are words on pages 180 and 181 if you have a prayer book. If you can see the screen, there are words on the screen, but this is Tfilat Halev, the prayer of the heart. So of course we can always use the words that are in our own hearts. We continue quietly.
Adonai tzori v'goali. Yiol leratzon, yiol leratzon. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you. Adonai, my rock and my redeemer.
We turn our thoughts now to those among us and those in our hearts who are ill and who are in need of healing of body, of mind, or of spirit. Those of you on Zoom, if you have names to add for prayers for healing, you can put them into the chat and everyone will have a chance to add names out loud. We hold in our thoughts and in our hearts for healing this evening Dan Sasher, Ira Weiss, Allison Plummer, Rabbi Dara Lerner, Susan Sisler, Joellen Fox, Alan Fremer, Valerie Pace, George Landberg, Sarah Ratliff, Kenny Schweiger, Leslie Hirsch, Dana Haitkin Nelson, Barbara Weiner, Joan Lifshitz, Ellen Greenberg, Genevieve Lightfoot, Amy Juskowitz Soonseller, Deanna Roth, Jonathan Falkowski, Martha and Ed Vincent, Ingrid Grosso, Audrey Cohen, Eddie DeAngelis, Vicki Lightnaker, Nettie Trommer, Mia Gannon, Jerry Prezioso, Jeff Abel, Monica Beyer, Erwin and Patty Cohen, Deborah Kostman, Jeffrey Schwimmer, Grace Schneider, Liz Yasuda, Mark and Paul Steiner, Celia Karp, Anne-Marie Rogan, Marian Mandel, Sharon Zinn, Nicole Moskowitz, Stephen Belay, Mike Wenzelberg, John Honan, Enid Cole, David Wyckoff, Joseph Mondano Sr., Linda and Howard Simca, Michelle Bracco, Ron Affronti, Rita Clark, Daniel Girk, Jeremy Brielle, Laura Castellano, Karen Vanderhorn, Stephen Rosen, and we include Joyce Kantrowitz's daughter Linda's family and also Meryl Kantrowitz. Jerome Taylor, Ed Robinson, Joanna Marie, Teresa O'Sullivan, Jimmy Jenkins, Chanel Kamabach, Juliette Dale, Maureen Dale, Elena R.M., Warren Feliz, Sylvia Solva, DeAndre Wynn, Jennifer Magoob, Sarah West, Tamia Bethia Williams, Jacqueline Smay, Robin Sirk, Stacy and David Mauser, Hannah Paynes, Arlene Kakulis, Judith Weiss, Joy Ojan, Merle Paisley, Kinte Gaskin, Dottie Tabikman, Jesse Laban, Lita Rogers, Dr. Stephen Jubiler, Rosalind Baum, Renee Bash, Harriet Holtzman, Ian Levitt, Helen Samuels, Batya Unger, Jackson and Tara Kushner, Carol and Stevie Doppelt, Shelley Samet, David Gershon, Elliot Wolfsey, Pat Flood, Roz Nadell, Cindy Rabinowitz, Amy Langer, George Ridler, Nancy Kelly, Ann Kelly, and Dr. Craig Rosenbaum. Please forgive me for any of my mispronunciations. Freema?
Thomas Ravusis, Deborah Kelly, Martin Bennett, Phyllis O'Neill, Arlene and Stephen Schneier. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Who else has names to add? Janice? Mike? Anyone else on Zoom? Diane Schenker?
Robin Power.
Thank you. We also include all of those who are suffering from COVID-19, those who have been wounded in service to our country or Israel, and those who have been harmed in recent disasters, whether natural disasters, including the storms in California and Alabama and Georgia, or the human-created disasters, including conflicts in Ukraine and Afghanistan and other areas of the world, as well as those harmed in gun violence. Our Misha Baruch is on page 371 in the middle of the page.
May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Berach Imotino Mekor HaBracha Lavoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This week's Torah portion, Va'era, continues a saga that many Jews have lived with all of their lives, the Exodus from Egypt, which we tell every year at our Passover tables. This week, Moses and Aaron have their first confrontation with Pharaoh, to no avail. And then the narrative takes us through the first 7 plagues: blood, frogs, lice, swarms of insects, though some say wild beasts, livestock disease, boils, and hail. We're good at listing the plagues. We used to give prizes to the religious school kids who could recite them. For a number of years now, there's been a trend that maybe you've noticed of frog-themed Passover toys and other products. Apparently, frogs were the cute plagues. You can also buy bags of plagues, which are not full of germs, but rather have little toys to represent each plague, ping pong balls for hail, and, a tiny plastic baby for the death of the firstborn. In our familiarity with this story and wanting to make it accessible to children, we might not notice, or we might be hiding a little bit from the fear and the pain that is in it. Those experiencing the plagues must have thought it was the end of the world. The plague of blood meant the water was contaminated, undrinkable. Fish died. Later plagues left dead frogs and dead livestock everywhere. People were incapacitated by boils. The text tells us that when the magicians got the boils, the magicians of Pharaoh, they couldn't counter what Moses and Aaron were doing because of the boils, because they were in such discomfort. People were killed by hail. There was the stink of rotting flesh and the destruction of food. It's difficult even to imagine what it must have been like, even as we have just been through a pandemic. And if we really tried to put ourselves there and understand what the experience must have been like every time we read this text, we might be overwhelmed by the horror of it. It is necessary and important for us to keep some emotional distance from terrible violence in order for us to continue to be able to function. In the early 1980s, the United States, maybe you remember this, was gripped for a few years by intense fear of nuclear war. I was in 9th and 10th grade, and I was indeed terrified that there was going to be a nuclear war. I don't know if it started with the TV movie The Day After, which depicted the aftermath of a fictional nuclear strike in Kansas, but that was part of it. I never saw that, and yet I heard so much about it at the time. This was while the Cold War was still going on, when Americans feared that we might find ourselves at war with the Soviet Union. After a while, though, discussion of nuclear arms receded to the background, and so did the fear of them. The bombs still exist, and occasionally we hear about the possibility that terrorists might gain access to them. We worry about that. We worry about North Korea and Iran developing nuclear weapons technology. But there has not been, in what I've experienced, that same kind of fear that people were feeling in the early 80s, or really kind of maybe the mid 80s. Because we've lived with this threat for so long, we're familiar with it and have managed to create some emotional distance from it so that we are able to function. Right now, people are living in terror in Ukraine and Afghanistan and in other places around the world. To look too closely at their situations can be so painful that it is overwhelming. We have to step back. We have to distance ourselves enough not to be paralyzed by the horror. But there has to be a balance. If we become too distanced, we stop caring. We stop looking for ways to help. We stop looking for ways to end these situations. We accept them far too easily. It is important that we feel outrage, sadness, and pain on behalf of other human beings so that we feel invested in creating a better world for all of us. Judaism, sensibly, tells us we should help whether we feel compassion or not, because our tradition recognizes that we can be overwhelmed and consequently inured to the violence and tragedy in the world. However, it is good to feel the compassion sometimes, to sometimes open ourselves enough to feel some of the pain and terror that others live with all the time. It helps us to remember how privileged we are and that we have a responsibility to others. As a rabbi, I do funerals. It's one of the things that I do. Today, I did a funeral for a woman who was 59 years old. Her son was 35, which is the same age that I was when my mom died. I have to keep a certain distance from that, but it doesn't feel right not to feel anything. So I'm always looking for the way to feel some of it while still being able to be that calm, non-anxious, comforting presence for families. The way we connect to a situation is by thinking of people as individuals. When something happens to a faceless mass of people, it means less to us. And this is why the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. encourages visitors to follow the history of one person through the years of the Holocaust while at the museum. We respond more and are more likely to try to help an individual or a small group in trouble. Our Torah portion contains a reminder of this. The narrative is interrupted by a genealogy, and we remember that God, Pharaoh, Moses, and Aaron were not the only ones involved in this event, the Exodus. Other individuals are named. We are told who they married and who their children were. This helps to remind us that everything that happened in Egypt, all of the plagues, happened to husbands, wives, mothers, fathers, children, individuals like us. As we read about the plagues this week and next, let us remind ourselves that nothing happens to a faceless mass of people. They all have names, histories, and lives, even if we don't know them. Let us allow ourselves to feel a little of the horror, a little of the pain, enough to understand the magnitude of what is happening in our Torah text and also what is happening in our world. And finally, may it move us to action. Amen and Shabbat Shalom. We are going to turn now to the Aleinu. Short? Long? Short. The Aleinu begins on page 586 at the top of the page. If you're able, I invite you to rise.
לעתיד גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד ארץ, ומושב וקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובהי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר חיה אדוני במלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. We turn our thoughts now to those who are no longer with us, our loved ones who have died in the past days or weeks or months or in past years at this time of the year. The Mourner's Kaddish is on page 598. If you're on Zoom and have names to add for the Mourner's Kaddish, you can put them in the chat and everyone will have a chance to add names out loud. We remember those who have died in the past year. Harold Shepard Jr., Eva Braxmajer, Madeline Hyatt, Ed Friedman, Ronald Homan, Erwin Bernstein, Shirley Amrani, Harry Goldberg, Lisa Friedman, Eleanor Teplitz, Patricia Christensen, Thea Platt-Glasser, Sharon Cooper, William Fritz, Bernard Cohen, Lucy Palazzolo, Blair Ford, Shlomo Nakash, Arlene Scher, Abraham Finkel, Ron Cricky, Mimi Karp, Rochelle Rolnick, Elaine Drucker, Matthew Brunner, Maddie Rosenbaum, Myron Jacobson, Lester Schenker, John Belay, Yefim Polyak, the Reverend Eleanor Lee McGee Street, Arthur Goldstein, Lotta Bloom, Irv Golden, Arthur Derry, Andrew Mazzella, Joyce Braziller, Linda Gilbert Schneider. Included on our yard site list for the coming week are Janet Cohn, Diane Figueroa's sister, Bonnie Sue Levine, Gail Levine Freed's sister, Robert Pandolfo, Lori Pandolfo's husband, Aaron Schwartz, Ben Schwartz's father, Jacqueline Smith, Scott Smith's mother, Joseph Tigler, David Olasov's grandfather, and Hyman Winokur, Alan Hecht's grandfather. Belle Radum, Paul Markowitz, George Politis, Cece Skurlock, Fran Arnowitz. Fran Arnowitz also, it's her first yard site. Thank you, Helene, for bringing that to our attention. Does anyone else have names to add? Nathan? Thank you. Janice? Eric? Mike? Anyone else on Zoom? Judith?
If I remember correctly, it was either last week, unfortunately, I wasn't at the whole service, or this week. I believe my grandfather, Samuel Weiss, is on the list this month.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Ruth? I did. Yes, I did. But thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we also include all of those who have died from COVID-19 and those who have died from other causes, whether in war or famine or terror or disaster, or alone and homeless on the streets of our cities. The Mourner's Kaddish is on page 598. Gesundheit. If you're able, I invite you to rise and join in or to participate according to your own custom. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, ba'alma divrach yiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayeh dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'yamru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach leolam ulalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yit hadar v'yit aleh v'yit halal shemei dekudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Damiran be'alma v'yamru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to the bereaved here among us and wherever they may be. And let us say, amen. You may be seated.
Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amin. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom
A few announcements before we conclude. Actually, not very many announcements at all. On Thursday, we'll have Torah study at 1 p.m. on Zoom. That's with me. And also on Thursday at 7:30 p.m. will be Israeli dance, and that's in person. I think I have adult Brit Mitzvah class this Monday evening on Zoom. I mean, there's other things going on. They're just not all in the announcements. And then I want to remind you also of the Brotherhood picnic on February 5th. That's an indoor picnic from 3 to 6 p.m. on February 5th, which I might have already said, downstairs in the banquet room. At the door, it's $10 per person. Please make checks payable to the Brotherhood of Beshert. There's a tzedakah plate on your way out of the sanctuary. Oh, Michael Rose? February 12th is the art history tour of the Brooklyn Museum, which it'll be on Zoom. It's not going to be at the Brooklyn Museum? Oh, a virtual art tour of the,
Who's doing
well, the
that?
tour is real too. It's just on Zoom.
Who's-
Okay,
who's
Richard
lead-
Lubell is leading that, I believe. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, if you're not here to put tzedakah in the tzedakah plate, you're welcome to make a donation via the website. And you can mark it tzedakah if you choose.
Adon Olam.
Oh, right. We're going to close with Adon Olam. Thank you.
You're welcome. Page 625. Adon Olam Hashem Malach B'terem kol yitzir nifra Le'yitnasa v'chetzo kol Azay melech shemo nikra B'yacharei kiklot hakol Levado yimelok nora V'hu haya v'hu hoveh והוא יהיה בתפארה, והוא אחד ואין שני, להמשיל לו להכבירה, בלי ראשית, בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשרה, והוא אלי וחי גואלי, וצוחק לי בעת צרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, בנות כוסי ביום מקרא. בידו הפקיד רוחי, ביד האישן והעירה, ועם רוגיב גביעתי, אדוני לי ולא
יברכך אדוני וישמרך. יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונך. יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך Shalom. May God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine on you and be gracious to you. May God lift God's face toward you and give you peace. Amen. And before we go, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, everyone. Have a beautiful rest of your Shabbat tonight
shalom.
and tomorrow.
Good job, everyone.
Shabbat shalom,
Shabbat shalom,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi and Noni and Mike. Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom, everybody.
shalom.
Everyone. Service.
It's nice to see everybody on Zoom.
Shabbat shalom,
Marisha and Dean,
everybody.
nice to see you. Roseanne, nice to see you. I'm not going to say everybody's names, but it's nice to see all of you.
Nice to see you, Rabbi.
Yes. Hi. Nice to see you too.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Have a good week.
Good night. Shabbat shalom.
Good night.
Shabbat shalom, Karen. Take care. Oh, there's everybody.
turn it off?
Hey, hi,
know.
everybody.
Sure.
Hi, Roseanne. How you doing?
That's one way to do
Joyce,
it.
we hope everybody feels. Deanna, how are you?
Thank you, Eric.
Joyce, hope everybody feels better.
So that was a plus.
Deanna, how are you? Everybody's muted.
Thank you. I remember.
Bye, Noni. Bye, Rabbi. Deanna,
Okay.
how are you? I'm mute. I'm on mute.